Welcome to the 9642 podcast. This is your host, Mr. Number 9.
And this is the Fool.
This is where me and the Fool give our
Unqualified and unrequested.
ramblings on the various issues in the world of sport.
Or something like that.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the bread and the butter.
Yeah.
That is Premiership football.
Woo!
We have had an exciting season, sort of. Well, not the championship side of things, because Liverpool have run away with the title. Currently 9 points ahead of Arsenal with 6 more games to go. I think they just need 3 more wins. 13 points, so they need about 3 more wins to confirm their title.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously Arsenal would have to win the rest of their games, which they're not going to do.
No,
given their form this season. But even if Liverpool were to win the next 6 games, they would finish on 94 points. That would be quite impressive.
Yeah.
So far, only 2 losses this season.
Yeah.
A bunch of draws, including to Manchester United. How did you lose to Manchester United at Anfield, of all places?
Yeah.
But they're worthy winners, I think. They'll be disappointed that they lost the League Cup final. Obviously, they lost the FA Cup to Plymouth Argyle, of all teams. And then they lost in the Champions League.
Yeah.
As well. To PSG, of all teams.
Yeah. So apparently I think they're lodging an appeal because PSG may have not quite registered players correctly. I don't know how that's helping Liverpool too much since we're already into the next round of that, but still.
Pretty much. Isn't that a bit too late now to do that?
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. I was like, oh wait, no, that's like the previous round. It seems very late. I mean, it might help Aston Villa.
Yeah, it might help Aston Villa, but as you say, like, I feel like it's too late for Liverpool.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're gonna let Liverpool back in. They have been kicked out.
Yeah, exactly.
At this point.
Yeah, we've gone through the first, parts of the next round, right? That's what I was going.
Yeah.
It seemed quite right, but.
At least put it in, but I mean, I don't know when they've put it in, but like, it seems a bit too late to me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going off very potentially shady rumors anyway, so maybe they're not really doing anything.
I mean, this was not as late as like when in I think 2001 Leeds decided to appeal the result of the 1976 European Cup, again, which they lost in the semi-finals to Bayern Munich. We're kind of like, it's a bit late now, guys.
Yeah. What do you want to do? Replay it? I don't know.
Sorry, that was the final, so they would have gotten the title at least.
Yeah, okay, that's
But like, it's a bit late at that point.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not. Yeah, too late. Some things it's just like, just let it go, man. It's gone.
Yeah. Though we're not gonna let Manchester City go if the 115 charges hold up. United get 2 extra titles. Yep, I'll take that.
Yeah. That's. Yeah, like that's a little bit different. Like that. Yeah. A much higher scale. So yeah, they just have the book thrown at them.
Yeah, Liverpool would get a couple, Arsenal would get a couple too.
Yeah. Everyone gets a couple. Except for us. I don't think we're getting titles. I think we might get a League Cup out of it. I can't remember.
Yeah. I think Wigan would get an FA Cup out of it. Not Wigan, sorry, Watford.
Yeah.
So, be pretty interesting. Heck, if it goes all the way back to Aguero, then United get 3 and Liverpool would get 3.
Yeah. And potentially it can do, I think. Like, well, I guess we don't know how far back they're going to actually take it, so.
Yeah. It'll be it probably won't be anything like that, but we'll see how and when it plays out. Speaking of Liverpool, they're looking at their games ahead. I think, like we said, we're pretty sure they're going to win the title. They have a game against Leicester.
Yeah.
Next week, which should be a tap-in. And they've got Spurs, who are terrible this season, and then Chelsea, who... Is that the game that gets Maresca fired? Because he doesn't qualify for the Champions League?
Yeah, well, we need a few more wins in there just to get up into that, keep that spot, but... I mean...
I think this season, 5th place will be enough for an English team to make it to the...
and
to the Champions League.
I mean, 3rd spot, Nottingham Forest is only 3 points ahead of us. So, you're saying that from the Premier title point of view, this season's not very interesting, but other than the top 2, the next 5, are all within 3 points of each other, and that's all Champions League, it's all European spots. So it's the, potentially 3 more Champions League spots. Europa League spot and not Europe spot. So.
Yeah. Well, Newcastle are already in Europe. They've won the League Cup, so they will be in the Conference League next season, regardless of their position. If they don't qualify for Europa League or the, Champions League, though it's very unlikely they won't finish in a Europa League spot, like at least 6th.
Yeah.
I think. Looking now, so they should at least finish 6th. Because 7th place will get to the... If they finish in the top 6, whoever finishes 7th will be in the Conference League. If Chelsea win the Conference League, they get a Europa League spot anyway. It looks like they will qualify for the Europa League anyway as well.
Yeah.
I think Bournemouth are a bit too far behind to finish in the top. Actually, maybe 8th place Bournemouth will get into the Conference League. I think Villa might go into the UEFA, the Europa League, because 5th place gets to Champions League, so it might be 6th and 7th.
No, I think
depending on who wins.
I think it's just the one into Europa, and then the one for Conference League, but that's what they're showing on Google anyway. So in terms of the table.
In terms of,
but
I guess
that's trusting Google. So
that's trusting Google. Also, if Manchester United win or Tottenham Hotspur win the Europa League, they will get into a 6th Champions League spot.
Yeah.
In the so they'll be 6th. So I think at that point they whoever finishes 6th will get the Europa League spot, unless they qualify for the Champions League somehow, some other weird way, i.e. Aston Villa wins the Champions League, for example.
Yeah.
Because they're still in it.
Yes.
So entirely possible. They could, in theory, be 7 clubs from England in the Champions League. If somehow Spurs or United were to win the Europa League, not impossible, or Villa were to win the Champions League. Once again, not impossible, but very difficult for Villa in their current position.
Yeah.
And obviously, if that happens, England definitely get that 5th legacy spot. They've got basically 3 teams winning the they've got the European clean sweep because Villa would have won the Champions League. One of Spurs or United would have won the Europa League, and obviously Chelsea's probably going to win the Conference League.
Most likely, yes. Yeah.
I mean, we all agreed that Chelsea are a bit OP for the Conference League as it is.
Yeah, no, definitely. It feels a little overkill, us being in there, but where we are.
Yeah.
And they still got to do the job though. So.
Yeah. One way or another, Chelsea's at least in Europe next season, probably.
Yeah, I would think so.
And I think in the FA Cup this year, currently we've got basically Forest against City and Palace against Villa.
Yeah.
If Palace were to win the FA Cup, once again, not impossible, they get into Europe. They get into the Europa League. So does that mean we won't have a league position in the Europa League because you've got 6? Like a ridiculous number of... You've got a ridiculous number of Champions League positions just automatically.
Yeah.
No, sorry. You'd have 7 if our ridiculous thing happened, and then somehow Crystal Palace won the FA Cup.
You got 8 different teams in the.
So that's already 8 different teams, and obviously you'd need another team to get into the Conference League.
So do we have? I guess we have to have someone in the Conference League anyway. So 9. I feel like at some point they'll stop.
Yeah, but basically what it would mean is I think Chelsea would once again qualify for the Conference League in 6th place.
Probably.
If that were the scenario. If they finish 6th, which is where they are at now.
No, it would be Europa, right? In our scenario, because we're winning the Conference League this year.
No, because the FA Cup would go to the Europa League spot, right?
But would still be, if we won the Conference League, would be.
Oh,
Europa.
You won the Conference League, so those be the 2 Europa League spots. So Chelsea, then Aston Villa would get the Conference League spot because there's already 2. There'd be no league position to get the Europa because there's 2 coming from England anyway, from alternate sources.
Yeah.
And then I guess if it stayed in the current format, no, Villa in our current estimations, Villa would be in the Champions League because they win the Champions League, right? So Bournemouth would be in the Conference League, which would be, I think, quite a good reward for Bournemouth.
That'd be an awesome reward for Bournemouth.
So, even if the ridiculousness happens, you need to be as high as 8th place to qualify for Europe still in this new Swiss format.
Yes, exactly.
For one of these things. So it won't be as far back, because we've basically got 2 teams, and somehow if Aston Villa were to finish outside that top 7 and Bournemouth were to go up, they would get that Conference League spot. So, that'd be a good result. Or Fulham, they're both on the same points, and as Brighton. So 3 teams potentially in there. And it's not impossible because Spurs and United one of those 2 could win the Europa League. They're not in a bad position.
Yeah, well, exactly.
And the Villa going and winning the Champions League is the hard one, but once again, also possible.
Definitely possible, but I think you're right. That's probably
more likely Arsenal.
Yeah,
obviously. But once again, not impossible. So it's an interesting situation. So Arsenal also, I think, they've pretty much sewn 2nd place, and they might win the Champions League. They're a good shout, I think.
Yeah.
Especially given their performance against Real.
Yeah.
But, strange things happen at the Bernabeu.
Exactly. They've still got to go to the Bernabeu in the Champions League, and if there's ever a place where dark magic happens, it's at the Bernabeu during a Champions League match. So.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Basically, 2 days' time, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
In the UEFA Champions League, and then they play Ipswich, which should be a tap-in. So they should be focused on Europa League because they've got Ipswich to play. They've got Southampton to play as well. Those are both, I think, pretty much tap-ins for them.
Yeah.
And then Crystal Palace, they should win because it's at home. And then they're playing Liverpool. At that point, Liverpool's probably already champions, but Liverpool might be happy with a draw to confirm champion status at that point. They're playing Bournemouth, who might be trying to go for European spots, and Newcastle, who are definitely going to be trying to go for European spots. But at that point, Arsenal may have already secured 2nd place.
Yeah, well, exactly.
And also they know they've got a Southampton game up their sleeve later on, so they're not going to be too worried. Southampton are literally already relegated, one of the worst teams in Premier League history.
Yeah. So they did make it a double points, so
Yeah, just.
Just.
Will they get any more points?
Doubt.
Yeah, pretty much. This is like where we looking at the relegation battle. Like, I think Ipswich kind of at least played well. They did get a big squad. This is a big issue, I think, the gap between the Championship and the Premier League. But we'll get into that because we've been seeing some interesting talks about that. Because the relegation battle's pretty much done, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, I think so too. I don't really see Ipswich. Oh, that's
14 points.
That's
14 points with 6 games to go. Even if they have to win almost all their games, and West Ham would have to lose all their games, not gain any points.
Yeah.
Looking at the top end again, the third place we have Nottingham Forest. This is like the last time they were this high in the Premier League. It was the 1995 season when Blackburn won the title.
Yeah.
They came third, qualified for the back then what was called the UEFA League. They play Spurs. It should be a quote-unquote easy game, given how bad Spurs are at the moment. And Chris Wood loves scoring against Spurs.
Yes.
And then they play City in the FA Cup, which, might be City's only chance for silverware this season, so they'll be taking that seriously, but I think so will Forest.
Yeah.
And they've got a game against Brentford, who are safe, nothing to play for. They've got they got an away game against Palace once again, nothing to play for. They've got a game against Leicester, which is once again should be a tap-in. Game against West Ham, which should be a tap-in, given how bad West Ham are.
Yeah.
And then they play Chelsea in the last game of the season. I don't think they'll need to go that far. I think Nottingham Forest have shown a lot of character.
Yeah.
Throughout the season, I think, and also like nobody below them is super consistent or in super good form.
Yeah.
There's no, other than maybe Newcastle, who like after winning the League Cup kind of hit this vein of form.
Yeah.
All the other teams are like so inconsistent. Like Nottingham Forest should beat City because they're playing home. They should beat Chelsea because they're playing at home. Like, it's not something you would say seasons past.
Yeah.
And and they play an interesting hybrid, like not really fully defensive but not really fully attacking style either. Like, they like chaos ball. And so it's also a difficult team to plan against.
Yeah, I think so.
So I think it would be a deserved end for them to finish in the top 4. Like, that's the thing. Like, this is a theme like we've been noticing in the last few seasons. We're getting new teams finishing in the top 4, qualifying for the Champions League. Gonna get into that a bit once we start talking about relegation and the Championship. Moving on from Nottingham Forest, we have Newcastle, the team of the moment. I think they've won their first trophy in a long time, so congratulations to them.
Yeah.
Eddie Howe showing his class. Their run-in looks very interesting. They've got a game against Crystal Palace and Ipswich, which are like the easy quote-unquote games.
Yeah.
And Everton. And then they've got games against Chelsea, Arsenal. Once again, Arsenal is so late into that season. At that point, Arsenal may have already sewn up the season second place.
Yeah.
They've got Villa and they've got Chelsea. So those are the win. If the Toon can win those 2 games, they're gonna probably be their 4th place. Like, they don't have to rely on that legacy spot.
Yeah.
And they should get into the Champions League again after season out.
Yes.
And once again, I think good reward for their consistency. They went up and down. They are very reliant on Alexander Isak. But I think Isak will probably stay. He'll probably re-sign to stay for another couple of seasons. He takes them to the Champions League. Like, think of the teams he could go to. City don't need him. They have Haaland. Yeah. Liverpool don't need him because they have Salah, and maybe Liverpool, if they sell one of their forwards, will get him. And then Arsenal is the team you might go to, but he's taken them to the Champions League, so he might want to stay and see what he can do again. After bringing them all the way in, so. It'll be interesting in off-season for sure for Newcastle, and obviously they have money to spend. They've sorted out a lot of their PSR, which is why they probably had such a thin squad this season. But I think they'll do really well in the off-season. They've had a good season already, and if they finish top 4, that's cherry on top. A trophy and top 4, I think Newcastle fans would have bitten your hand if you told them that's what you'd offer them at the beginning of the season.
No, exactly.
Next up, we have Manchester City. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Manchester City are a team that look like the opposite of Manchester City from seasons past. They obviously they're still in the FA Cup. They had their run. And they got kicked out of the Champions League by Real Madrid, which seems to be a tradition every year. And they lost in the League Cup early on when they were going through some terrible form in the early bit of the season. And they don't look like a good team at the moment. They're playing Villa. They're playing Everton, which. They should win that, but it's at Goodison Park. This is the last season Everton are playing at Goodison Park.
And Everton have come up with a decent bit of form in the last little bit as well.
They don't have to worry about relegation. And so the Everton, basically they've got a free hit till the end of the season. I wouldn't be surprised if the Everton won that game at home, especially. They then play against Villa at home, so that's going to be a very important game if they want to secure 4th and 5th or 5th. Nottingham Forest, that's like the key game in the FA Cup. If City want to get a trophy this season. It would be a great season for Forest if they were to win the FA Cup and finish top 4. That has to be their goal, I'm sure, at this point of the season.
Exactly.
Basically, they have no European football. Getting a trophy for the first time since I think 1989 that would be huge. Be a huge. Result for the club. City then play Wolves in the Premier League, Southampton, Bournemouth, and then Fulham. Obviously, Bournemouth and Fulham might still be fighting for European spots at that point of the season, and then Wolves and Southampton are already relegated, and Wolves are safe and not a good team at the moment. So
I think that's the important part. Not a good team. They've managed to keep themselves safe, but that's probably the best that you could say about Wolverhampton this year, I think.
Yeah, there is a point of redemption for City. They do play in the Club World Cup in June. They've got they're in the same group as Al Ain from Saudi Arabia and Wydad AC, who I believe play in Egypt. And I'll have to double check that. And then they've got
Morocco,
Juventus
apparently.
as well. Morocco. Okay, they were North African.
They're based in a club based in Casablanca.
In Casablanca, along with Raja, so I'm guessing they must be local rivals. So, and then they've got Juventus. I think the format is that the top 2 teams go through, so City would hope to at least make the round of 16, I would hope. You'd hope. And then we'll see from there, because it's going to be a very competitive tournament depending on how well set up the teams are. I'm just going to double check if Al Ain is actually in Saudi Arabia. I'm just suddenly thinking I might be wrong about that. That might be the club that's in Egypt. Oh no, they're Asian Champions League holders, so they are not an African club. They're based in Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi, there, yeah. Yes.
So they're from the Emirati League.
Yeah.
We're going to see a bunch of interesting teams in the Club World Cup. I think Auckland City representing Oceania.
Yeah.
Is the only Oceanian team. What would happen if we had 4? Because they've won the last 4. What would have happened if there was different winners? Would there just be playoffs?
I don't know how they would have done it. Maybe they just would have done a playoff. Or they would have chosen whoever was the highest ranked by FIFA rankings, I would assume.
Yeah, well, that would have been Auckland City. And Auckland City have a good record in the Club World Cup. They've consistently gone to semi-finals, and they've finished 3rd once, so, you know.
Yeah.
At least they'll be the only semi-professional club in that tournament, which is pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, and they're in a group with Bayern, Benfica, and Boca Juniors. So that will be lots of fun for them.
Yeah. I mean, the European teams are all going to be tired, so Boca Juniors is always going to be a tough side for them to play. The South American sides always take the Club World Cup very, very seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, so best of OFC Champions League winners in the last 4-year ranking. So that's the format for Oceania, and CONMEBOL gets 6 slots. We should do a review of this Club World Cup, but we'll do that later.
Yeah.
That's a future podcast. Spoiler alert.
Spoilers.
Moving on from City, we have Chelsea.
Yeah.
When they were playing really, really well, as you may recall, I told you I look forward to seeing how Chelsea end up firing Maresca at the end of the season.
Yes.
And there's so much Maresca out sentiment from Chelsea Twitter. I know Chelsea Twitter is not real life, Chelsea, but it's deafening, right? Chelsea Twitter and Chelsea YouTube has got so much anti-Maresca feeling.
Yeah. I haven't quite felt that from Chelsea Reddit yet, but yeah.
Yeah, but who takes the Reddit seriously?
Not even Reddit takes Reddit seriously.
Not even Reddit takes Reddit seriously. You're right. And anyway, looking at their remaining fixtures, Chelsea play Legia Warsaw in the Conference League. A game they should win, and they then play Fulham away, which is a tough game, and then they play Everton at home. Could be a win, and then they play Liverpool at home, which is going to be a tough game because Liverpool will still need to win at that point to confirm. And I think Liverpool want to do really well, like get more than 90 points this season if they can. That's probably their goal, especially since they can't win an FA Cup or a League Cup or Europe this season, so this is their one trophy. They play Newcastle at St. James, once again, tough fixture. They play Manchester United, which should be an easy win, because Manchester United are bad.
Yeah.
Or, let me paraphrase. Manchester United are really good against Liverpool, Manchester City, and Arsenal this season. Like, they played really, really well in those games, and then played really badly against everybody else. Even in the games they've won.
Yeah.
They then play Nottingham Forest at Forest. Once again, tough run of fixtures there. And then They have a Club World Cup to go to in June, but they will have a game in the Conference League, a couple of games at least if they make the finals, which they should.
Which they should, yeah. We'll have semi-final and final in there as well, I would assume. Though, I think with the Conference League, we're a slightly more difficult, quote-unquote, path, because if I remember correctly, Fiorentina fluffed their lines in the group stages and the round robin, so they're on our side of the draw. So it means the semi-finals against Fiorentina, which is the next highest ranked club.
But then the other side, they'd probably get Betis. So
and then there's Betis, so we'll probably have Betis in the final.
I mean, the other end, I guess, if they had to get Rapid Wien or Djurgården, you'd be a bit more secure, but there's no guarantees. Fiorentina are in pretty good form, so that would be tough. But Betis are also in good form. So at this point, like, Chelsea have real competition. But once again, those teams should be easy. They should be teams Chelsea can beat. Like, Chelsea's squad value severely outmatches them.
Oh no, easy. Yeah, easy peasy. Like, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be winning these games, but like, there was theoretically easier. Based on incoming rankings, it should have theoretically been slightly easier after the final than what we're going to end up with. But same point, some point we had to beat Fiorentina, some point we probably had to beat Real Betis. So it had to happen anyway.
If you were gonna play a club, like, if they were playing a club in La Liga, like even like a Sevilla or a Villarreal, who have like this European pedigree, you've got, then you might be worried. Or like if they were playing an Italian club like Napoli or Atalanta. But I guess Fiorentina do have European pedigree as well. So.
No, Fiorentina's and Real Betis is 6th in La Liga at the moment, so they're on a reasonable. They've got a good La Liga record, but they've never won a European trophy. Like, how Sevilla just routinely wins European trophies. I know, it's a different thing. Yes.
And Villarreal have consistently gone to semis and finals and won a Europa League recently. So
yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, in terms of European pedigree, a little bit different, but at the same point, like, a little worried about Real Betis because they're in quite good form at the moment and being good in the Conference League too, but like Florentino has not had as great a season as maybe you might think.
That might be why Fiorentina's a tougher fixture, because Betis they can't give up on the league, right?
No.
They're potentially in Europe.
Yeah. Well, Fiorentina's almost out of Europe contention in La Liga. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's only 3 points, but at the same time, it's the others they got round them.
Serie A is super competitive, right?
Yeah.
It's the most interesting league in Europe. We know. We've consistently found this to be true.
Yeah.
Now, looking a bit further down the pyramid, or a lot further down the pyramid, we just quickly look at Manchester United. They have a game against Lyon in a few days. Second leg, then they play Wolves, which in theory they should win, but they've been terrible. And then they play Bournemouth, which again, in theory they should win, but they're terrible.
Yeah.
Manchester United might not even make 40 points this season. They're currently on 38.
Yeah.
This is going to be a theme. I'm not bringing this up for no reason.
Yeah.
They've obviously going to play Bournemouth away, tough game. Brentford away, tough game. And they have a terrible record against Brentford. They're hosting West Ham. And they play Chelsea away, which Chelsea should win. And then they host Villa. At that point, it might not matter. And then nothing. Obviously, if they beat Lyon, there will be fixtures in the Europa League come for them next month. And all that. So they're still got a tough schedule ahead, and I think they are pretty much focused on the Europa League.
Yeah.
Manchester United is this is showing why this gap is unfair between the Champions League and the Championship and the Premiership.
Yeah.
Because any other city, like Manchester United, will probably, it was completely viable for Manchester United to finish on less than 40 points this season and not be relegated. And because the gap is so wide, like this, I was seeing somebody who's like a Burnley fan who was doing this review of Championship games, and he basically said there isn't a top 6 anymore because at some point it's diminishing returns, how much money, your impact on the squad, like quality of players. You can only have 11 players at a time, and good players want to play.
Yeah.
So, like, you're only going to pay a certain amount, like everyone's going to have a decent enough side to compete with each other. So he's basically presented there's no longer a top 6 or a top 4, it's a top 17. And basically he doesn't foresee a time when a club, like let alone a club becoming good, like Nottingham Forest, like coming up and then staying up a season and moving on. Like the last club to do, Nottingham Forest are literally the last club to come up without parachute payments and stay up.
Yeah.
And Ipswich, who basically were one of the best teams in the Championship when they were there.
Yeah.
Got up without since then are the last team to get promoted without parachute payments. And they're not gonna stay up.
No.
And it'll be, I think, impossible to... Oh, no, actually, no, there was Luton who went up without parachute payments. And Luton now look like they're going to be relegated from the Championship.
They're going to have back-to-back relegations.
Yeah. And as looking at the Championship, it's... especially with parachute payments and that just distorting everything, the promoted sides, like, almost impossible for them to stay up. Like, Manchester United are so terrible this season. They should at least have been in a relegation battle.
Yeah.
They were never even threatened with relegation. Like, West Ham were so bad this season, they were never threatened with relegation.
Yeah.
And neither were Wolves, neither were Spurs. Like, no. Everton, at least you can say that they're in the middle of shifting their squad, and they're gonna have, David Moyes is now back, and they're gonna have a new stadium. So, bunch of changes. So, and the fact that they're comfortable this season is a really good result, given where they were in the last few seasons and their PSR issues. None of these other clubs had those problems, and they were awful. Like, previous seasons, club like United would get relegated.
Yeah, 100%.
These promoted clubs would have come up and beaten United. Like, United's basically won against these relegation-threatened teams, the relegation teams, and the top teams. That's it. And like, Spurs are in a similar position. Like, Spurs at least had fuckloads of injuries.
Yeah.
Compared to United. So, and obviously we're relegation promotion, but we don't just want relegation and promotion for its own sake.
Yeah.
Like, the whole point of relegation and promotion is it should be, it should punish teams that are incompetent. Like, you play badly, you get relegated. Like, you shouldn't be able to be mediocre. Like, no. Manchester United can basically exist on second gear for the rest of their existence and not be relegated from the Premier League now. They'll never have to worry.
Yeah, probably you're right.
Like, there's no incentive for United to improve if they just want to avoid relegation. Like, what they're doing now is good enough.
Yeah, exactly. There's, nothing there. They're going to be fine. You say if they just idle through, then That's because something really bad happens, but that'd have to be absolutely horrible.
And we know it's Manchester United not only are like a bad team this season, they're institutionally bad. The culture at the club is bad. Like, even the new people taking over have not started off well. Like, they've been there for less than a year now, and they've pretty much, like, I don't think any fan likes what they're doing so far. Like, they've had a lot of redundancies of the staff, but then they do stuff like they retain Erik ten Hag, and then they had to pay 30 million to when he left, and then they did similar to Dan Ashworth. And it's really dumb because they were like, apparently they wanted a more data-focused guy, and Dan Ashworth's famously a culture guy. He's good at improving the culture, and you're just like, why did you not know that?
Yeah.
What he was before you hired him? Why did you just hire him? And then, okay, secondly, I think Manchester United need a culture guy. You know? Like, he seems to be what the club needs. Why, your data guy doesn't need to be your director of football. They just need to understand, they just need to take the advice of data people.
Yeah, you need data people around to help advise them. Yeah. And then he can be...
And he clearly understands how to do that. He was at Brighton, the data club.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's really dumb. And then it cost a lot of money. They've basically decided to not prioritize the women's team. The team that came actually close to winning a title in the last few years.
Yeah.
They just missed... They were so close, like literally a point behind Chelsea a couple of seasons ago. And then they decided not to reinvest in the team. And they're now basically gone. It's not a priority. It's such a boomer mentality, like girls don't matter.
Yeah.
Jim Ratcliffe had. It's so dumb. And like, you don't need to invest that much to, to get the results at United. Like, United weren't like paying ridiculous money like the way Chelsea are paying for women's team really good money for their women's side, and they're rightfully the best team in the country and one of the best teams in Europe in their women's team. And like, they could compete with Chelsea with less investment than they had, and they could have just invested a little bit more to match. If they matched Chelsea, they would have probably been better than Chelsea. Like, in a few seasons, and or regularly competing with Chelsea, like winning a title, winning maybe a Champions League. Chelsea have recently sold their women's team to themselves for $200 million. Like, classic. The accounting that Chelsea does is like, that's fantastic. I gotta love it. But the value, I don't think anyone thinks is too wrong, because there's a team in the United States, I think Angel City, that sold for just under 180
I think it was
million?
180 million, yeah.
And you think, well, Chelsea has way more room to grow because the game in Europe is not as mature as the game in America. So, yes, the American teams are worth more now, but they've grown, right? That margin for growth is way smaller than a European side. Like, other than your Lyons and Barcelonas that have, like, already invested, like, Chelsea, I think, still has way more room to grow.
Yeah, exactly.
As a club and as a brand. And the women's team is really well supported in Chelsea.
Yeah, exactly.
And, like, and it shows that intent. They're like, we value you 200 million. Like, how good would it feel to be a Chelsea women's player right now? Like, that's what we've done. Like, we've created a $200 million brand for Chelsea.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we've done. And, like, United's going the opposite way. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, even if it was, like, an accounting trick, it's not ridiculous money. No. And their boss is openly saying, like, that's what we value you at. You know?
Exactly. And it probably was a little bit of an accounting trick, but at the same time, the value wasn't the trick. Like, I think the value they put on it was the actual value. Just how they were moving it between accounts or between entities. Yeah. That was the trick. But the actual value of it is what they value it at.
Yeah. And let's be fair, Chelsea are exceptional.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But Arsenal, Manchester City, Liverpool all have great women's teams. Nottingham Forest have great women's team. And they're investing in them, Yeah.
And the other thing is, I did see a lot of talk about the comparison with Angel FC and how, Angel FC theoretically should be a better club and should be more valued, and Chelsea valuing their one higher than that. I still don't go, but it's still like name recognition. The Chelsea FC women's team would have better name recognition than Angel FC, like worldwide, because people will just go, oh, Chelsea, that's a European, it's the English Premier League team. Oh, their women's team, Right. Same with Arsenal or Manchester United or whatever. Like, it's a lot more value just being attached to the club.
Like in Europe, Chelsea are the third biggest women's team club, right? In terms of fame and like brand, like what they are, like club following and everything. Like they're only behind Lyon and Barcelona, basically.
Yeah.
And like obviously Lyon have issues, and they're like with the ownership and things like that. The women's team are still pretty good, nowadays. But they've got that history and that pedigree, like that and that prestige, whereas Barcelona are just really, really good. Right now. And they can consistently get good players from Premier League teams because clubs like Manchester United sell like honor to them, like, or let her go for free. It's like she's the best player in the league. How do you let her go for free?
It is just mind-boggling. You're right.
It's crazy. Like so basically the board at United do silly things like spend $30 million in compensation to people like Erik ten Hag and Dan Ashworth, and those guys deserve it, by the way, because they got fucked over. I have no issues with them. Like, this is the board's issue. They have no accountability. Nobody no consequences on them. And like people who are actually successful, like the women's team, get defunded. These are the guys who've actually done well, despite your lack of investment. And
despite you not actually helping in any way, shape, or form, they still did well. So imagine if you actually tried to help them.
And they won an FA Cup, like the first in history. Like,
crazy.
Like Manchester United, like the men's team have also won an FA Cup, but that was like a historic win the women's team haven't done in like after being formed 5 years ago, to do that so quickly. That was such an incredible achievement.
That is really amazing, really, when you think about it, for that exact reason. Like, recent team and able to get together and be competing in such a short time frame.
Like, basically, like, the whole thing about if it is a Big 17, and I'm inclined to agree that it's what it's becoming, because we are getting a new club in the last few years in the top 4 come in, right? Like, the clubs from the traditional top 5 or 6 are not the teams that are qualifying for the Champions League, let alone Europe. And then you've got clubs like West Ham being successful in Europe and things like that. So this 17 teams, and like, if you think about the team that made it, like up without parachute payments and managed to stay, they broke the rules. Nottingham Forest, and good on them. Like, fully think that was the right play. They took those points deductions, didn't get relegated, right? And then now they're getting the benefits of that. Like, why follow the rules? What was the... Because if you don't follow the rules, you end up like Nottingham Forest, third in the Premier League, qualifying for the Champions League.
Exactly.
Maybe winning an FA Cup.
Exactly.
So if you're like promoted for the Championship and you've got a rich owner, like the owners of Nottingham Forest, because he owns Olympiacos. That what is your incentive to follow the rules?
Well, exactly.
And he shouldn't. Like clearly the results showed that was the right way to go.
Clearly.
And on the flip side of that, like, people, like, if you're a Sheffield United fan, like, they're top of the Championship now. If you're playing this incredibly entertaining and fun to watch brand of football, and as soon as you're getting promoted, you're going to be playing, low block and then losing games, playing shitty, unentertaining style of football that you hate. You have to deal with VAR, which you don't have to in the Championship. You have to play games at weird times, like 2 in the morning, 9 at night, all that. But now, if you're in the Championship, you play Saturday between 12 and 5, like God intended. Right? Do you want to be promoted in the Premier League? Everything's better in the Championship.
Yeah.
Other than money. Like, I'm sure their owners want to be promoted, don't get me wrong. But if you're a fan, do you want to be promoted into the Premier League?
I was actually talking of sort of similar things. I was seeing a bit of an interesting story the other day, which was focused on Wrexham, who should probably be promoted up again.
In the playoffs?
Yeah.
Promoted or in the playoffs?
Promoted in the playoffs, so they should make their way up into the Championship. So, third season in a row, back to back, promotions up. And it's going to be interesting seeing them in the Championship, because up to now they've clearly been the club with the biggest money in whichever league they've been in. But they'll make it to the Championship, and may not be the team with the biggest money. And because we talk about the difference between the Championship and the Premiership, but Wrexham could show the difference between the Championship and the rest of the league pyramid. Like, there could be the thought is that they might struggle up in the Championship, even with the money they've got, even with how well run they are. And so that would,
But I think the record of League One promotions into Championship, like the strike rate of staying up, is much higher.
I think over a couple of seasons, but they do tend to sink back down again there because it's...
Eventually, you're right. They do. That's because the Championship is super unpredictable. Unless you're Preston North End and Bristol City, you're going to either be in a relegation battle, and the next season you could be going for the playoffs. Yeah. And that is like every Championship club, right? That's not the promote. Like, that's a feature of the Championship in that every club, including the promoted clubs and the clubs that got relegated from the Premier League, they could go for back-to-back relegations, or you could have Ipswich, where it's like, they go from League One to Championship to Premiership, Yeah.
But there's not many teams that come up, right? Normally it's the Championship teams just float. There's just a bigger pool of quote-unquote Championship teams than can fit in the Championships. Some of them are in the Premiership, and then they'll come back down. And some of them are in League One, and they come back up. So it's like just how they shuffle themselves across sort of 18th in the Premiership down to 3rd-ish in the in League One. So, which is why Wrexham gets to be a little bit more of an interesting case, because they haven't been there before. Like, they are a new club coming up. They're something new. So Luton is the
Wrexham have overcome the big bump. Yeah, Wrexham are the club that have overcome the big bump, because people knew that getting promoted from National League to League 2 to League 1 is not that difficult. Lots of clubs have done it, like gone to League 2 and then gone to League 1 from the National League. Because there's not much difference in money in League 2 and the National League anymore. In fact, a lot of the National League clubs can spend more money because the rules are way less stringent in the National League. And then, there are 3 years of like books don't start, right? Until 3 years pass. So they have time to... But then in League 1, it's really hard to push up, because League 1 does have decent money, and you're competing, a club like Notts County or Grimsby, if they were to get promoted into League 1, it's tough for them to compete in that.
Yeah.
And League 1 has their own versions of Preston North End's, like, I guess clubs like Crewe and, Crewe just got relegated. I guess clubs like Darlington and Lincoln, who just stay. And then obviously the Championship, like, literally, unless you're Preston North End or Bristol City, you don't know what's going to happen next season. It is completely unpredictable. You expect well-run clubs like Burnley, if they get relegated, to come straight back up. Like, they've become a quintessential yo-yo team.
Yeah.
And I think Leicester as well, because they're well-run. And, like, Leicester are just unlucky, right? They got relegated in the wrong season. If they stayed up now, they would be just stay up. Forever.
Exactly. I think we discussed that at the beginning of the season, right? We thought, well, I thought maybe they might stay up, and they don't look like they are. But,
And to
yeah.
be fair, they lost their manager, right?
Yeah,
at the beginning of the season.
Yes.
And Leicester did the silly thing because they were 16th and they had Steve Cooper, the guy who's an expert at keeping you up. The last guy to keep a club up in the Premier League. He kept Nottingham Forest up. He kept Bournemouth up.
Yeah.
And he had them at 16th, and then they went for Ruud van Nistelrooy. So Leicester made a bad call there, and it harmed both Leicester and Ruud van Nistelrooy's career.
Yeah.
So that was probably the wrong decision. Like, I think this is like what you need to do. If you get promoted into the Premier League, you hire Steve Cooper. And maybe a club like Ipswich, where they have Paul McKenna's been there for a few seasons and helped them get up from League One, and he's part of designing a lot of the long term how the club goes. They might not want to get rid of him. He might stay, but Southampton's not going to keep their manager. Leicester's not going to keep their manager next season.
No.
Steve Cooper's available. That's who you should be hiring. Yeah, as I was saying, Steve Cooper is the guy you've hired to keep you up, and then you fire him. Because second season you need to get another coach.
Yeah.
Who will, because you got that second season of Premier League money.
Yeah.
To improve your squad and things like that. That's what Bournemouth did, right? They got and Nottingham Forest eventually did that with Steve Cooper.
Yeah.
Getting Nuno. And this is there's so many good coaches in the Premier League now, and there's so many good players in the Premier League.
Yeah.
So it's not hard to see why a club why it's so hard to step. Nottingham Forest literally did what we thought was a risky maneuver, but it played off, right? They were brave, they took the risk. They basically bought 20 new players.
Yeah.
Which I think at the time you and I thought was the right strategy.
Yes. No, I
go with.
I do remember. I'm pretty sure we thought that it was the best, because they had been pretty shrewd with what they were. Yeah, they got lots of players in, but they got all the right players in, and the right types of players, and players that sort of fitted in with what they needed. So.
Yeah. And then they stayed up.
Yeah. So definitely worked.
Yeah. I mean, sure, they cheated, quote unquote.
Quote unquote, yes.
But even their quote unquote cheating, it turned out to be like an accounting sort of cheating, right? They knew they were going to sell a player, and the exact date the transaction went was literally a week after the deadline. Otherwise, if that had counted a week before, it would have, they would have made it through that $20 million sale.
Yeah.
Of one of their, and you're kind of look, deadlines exist and they have to be respected, but in the course of things, that wasn't a big thing. They knew their points deduction wasn't going to be huge for that.
Yeah.
It's like we said, Chelsea, when Everton were deducted, I think 8 points, we were that's receivership, and you're Everton don't deserve that for breaking the rules. They didn't go into receivership.
No.
And as we discussed, receivership's really bad. It's bad for a community when a club like that goes into receivership. It hurts small businesses and all, the taxpayer and all these other people,
Yeah, exactly.
So it's right that you punish clubs for that.
Yeah, well, exactly.
It sucks for the fans, but it's you're punishing because those people have caused harm outside of just the football table.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's the situation, because at the moment it feels like a lot of clubs in the Premier League are probably just going to be happy to be the equivalent of a Detroit Lions or Cleveland Browns. They know they're not going to be relegated. They've just got, players are just too good. And I think I said a few seasons ago that not the fans, but Steve Parish, if you offered him, like, Crystal Palace becomes the Preston North End of Premier League, like, they'll never get relegated, but they never make never make a European spot, but they're never in a relegation battle, he'd, like, bite your hand to get that.
Yeah.
Because he would secure Crystal Palace forever.
Yeah.
And, like, lots of similar clubs, I think maybe Brentford would put themselves in that same position as well. Maybe not Brighton, because Tony Boone seems really ambitious. But, yeah. And probably these days Manchester United as well. And, like, this... In a perfect world, a club like that are as badly run as Manchester United are, they should be relegated into the Championship. The ownership group should, like, okay, we're not going to play. We're going to look to sell the club. We're going to, move on. Like, it would be terrible for us as fans, but, that's how, like, the improvement would come. Like, maybe we'd be terrible like Leeds and have 20 years and, like, not back in the top division. Yeah. And that's the real cautionary tale, but, it's like what we deserved if that was the situation.
Yeah.
Like Leicester, you could say at least got unlucky because they had those weird COVID seasons and they had to make a gamble one way or the other.
Yeah.
And they picked wrong.
Yeah.
And the fact that they came straight back up shows that at least that, the bones inside Leicester, the institutions are strong.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I imagine that we'll see them back up in a couple of years again. So next season they should do well in the Championship.
I would be expecting them to come straight back up. But yeah, what would you think? Like, if you were living in England, a fan of a Championship club, and you could go to your local club's games, would you want to be in the Premier League? It's like way less fun.
Yeah. When you put it the way you did before, it's like, maybe not so much. Let's have the fun, but...
Like, just being able to go to games in the afternoon versus late night or evening is a huge difference, right? And then, also, it's always on Saturdays, or Sundays, so really huge difference again. Like, especially you could also go on away trips with your team. Okay, like, even you with, like, 2 kids could consider that, right? Like, it's not unreasonable.
No, exactly.
And then, obviously, the best of all, no VAR.
That is the best of all.
And, like, that's reason enough to want to not get promoted, in my opinion.
Don't have to deal with VAR. Excellent.
We'll see how it goes. Like, we'll see if the Ombudsman will do anything about it. We all know how I feel, that the Ombudsman should just tell the Premier League to buy the EFL and the National League.
Yeah.
And then they'll be forced to fund it because, those lower members will vote that way. Or even if you did a thing of like, okay, Premier League clubs get like 4 votes compared to or 5 votes, and National League clubs get 1, and you did it that way.
Yeah, each level get progressively more votes.
Which I think is a fair enough way of doing it. It would still, I think you would still end up with a fairer system.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's one of those things. Like, I don't think that's ever going to happen, but that would be my ideal.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that can only ever happen if it was completely forced on.
The Ombudsman would have to do it.
Yeah, the Ombudsman would definitely have to enforce it, along with this, dictating the structure and how it all would work as well. So.
But yeah, I think though that's all we have time for today.
Yeah.
But yeah, look forward to seeing you all again. I'm sorry about the recent misses. I've been really sick, so it's made recording really, really difficult. But we'll try to keep it more regular as the season progresses.
Yeah.
Really interesting stuff to talk about. So many interesting ideas. So it isn't because we've run out of ideas.
No.
So keep following, and we'll hopefully be back here in 2 weeks' time with more new stuff for you to listen to.
Exactly.
See you next time.
Catch you next time.
Well, that is the end. Thanks for listening all the way through.
If you liked what you heard, we have even more. 9642 Discord and a Buy Me a Coffee.
Pretty sure it's Buy Me a Beer.
Oh yeah, buy me a beer on buymeacoffee.com.
In both these places, you can talk to us, and we may even listen, especially if you do buy a said beer or coffee. I might still be confused.
Yes, we're easily bribed. All links are in the show notes below.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
This is on YouTube.